Hey there, motorhome owners. Today in your 2015 motorhome with the Ford F53 chassis, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Roadmaster's rear anti-sway bar. And this is what your sway bar is going to look like when it's installed. It's going to work with your factory sway bar, which is located just on the other side of your axle. So you're going to have double the amount of anti-sway on your vehicle. The auxiliary sway bar that we've added here is a thicker diameter bar, so it's going to be even stronger than the factory bar that's located on the other side. So what this means for you is that over the life of your RV, you're going to experience less sway. So you won't have so much rocking back and forth. This is nice if you're caught in heavy crosswinds where it may cause it to sway, or you hit any uneven pavement that causes it to sway. It's going to make it more comfortable inside for your passengers because they're not going to experience so much sway back and forth. And it's going to be a lot easier on you driving the vehicle because you're not going to be fighting to maintain a straight line down the road as much. So ultimately, this means you're going to have more energy when you get to your destination, so you can enjoy doing the things that you like to do with your family and friends rather than wanting to take a nap. It's designed to work with your motorhome's chassis. It's a no-drill installation. It simply bolts in place. And it has a solid steel construction that's going to last the life of your RV. So once you make this upgrade, you're going to be getting the benefits forever, and you never have to touch it again. It's a pretty straightforward installation. You just have to remove and add a few bolts. You can do it right in your driveway. Let's go over it now. We'll begin our installation at the back of the vehicle, just above the rear tires. You're going to want to lift the frame of the vehicle up and place jack stands underneath of it to elevate the frame up above your leaf spring so we can access the bolts that we're going to need to take out. You can lift the vehicle using your leveling jacks. However, you don't want to work on it when it's supported just by the jacks. You want to make sure you place jack stands underneath the frame to support it. We're going to use the 13/16 socket to remove the two lower bolts located here just behind the tire above our leaf spring. You'll want to save your hardware as we are going to be reusing it. On the other side of the frame, you'll find your nuts. They likely just unscrewed, and they typically just sit on top of the frame. So you want to grab those. We can then take our bracket. We're going to put it up in place. You want the L to be on the outside of the frame here. Line up the holes in the bracket with the holes in the frame, and then reinsert your existing hardware. We'll take the nuts that we found on top of the frame. We're going to reinstall those on the other side of the bolts. Once you've got them both started, you can just tighten down your bolts. The nuts have a tab on them that holds the nuts, so you don't need to put any wrench or anything on those. We can repeat the same process on the other side. We're now underneath the vehicle. We did lower it back down because if you still have it raised up to access your bolts, then your leaf spring's going to be about here, and then you won't be able to access the hardware where your shackles are going to go. So lower it down. You will probably have to lay on your back at this point and get underneath your motorhome for the rest of the installation. Before we put our sway bar up, we are going to need to remove the bolt on the lower part of our shocks for the rear, as we're going to have to pull those out a little bit to get the hardware in to hold the sway bar up. You'll use a 1 1/8 inch socket and wrench to remove these. Once you get this bolt out, you're going to do the same thing on your other shock. We'll now take the bolts that come in our kit. We're going to slide washers on them and then slide them down through the holes that you'll find behind the shock there. The button head with the Allen there, we're going to place in the slot closest to where the shock mounts, and we'll place the hardware with the hex head bolt in the top. If it's a little rusty, you might have to just tap your bolts down. We'll now prepare our sway bar and then get it in place. Take the bushings that come in your kit, use some of the green lubricant, smear it around all throughout the inside of the bushing. After you've coated the inside, I do like to take just a little bit left, usually just whatever's left on my finger, and I'll smear that around the outside. That can just help cut down on squeaks and noises. Then you'll place it on your sway bar And we're going to repeat that on the other side. We can now lift our sway bar into place and attach it to the hardware. I'm going to go ahead and do this from the other side so you can see the bolts. It's usually easier if you're just in front of the axle. You want to make sure that you have it oriented in the correct way. So if it was sitting on your lap like it is here, or sitting on the ground, the arms would be angled slightly upward away from the ground, pointing towards the back of the vehicle. We'll go ahead and place the bushings and shackles over the hardware that we previously installed. And then we're going to secure it using flat washers and lock nuts. We're going to be using the washers that have the flat edge on them because it may be necessary for it to clear to go on your shackle there. Not all of them may need that cutout, but it's best to save these for the side just in case you do need it. Once you've got a few threads on all the bolts, it'll hold itself in place, making it easier to tighten it all down. We'll now take our end links. We're going to slide them up between the brackets that we installed earlier. Take the large bolts that come in our kit, go from the outside of the frame towards the inside, going through the bracket and our end link, and place a nut on the other side. We're going to do this on the other side as well. Now take your sway bar, we're going to swing it up, line it up with your end link. Use the same long bolts that we used above. Slide from the outside of the frame in and place a nut on it. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now we can go back and tighten down our hardware. The lower bolt here, we're going to use a 7/32 Allen to hold, and we're going to use a 9/16 socket to tighten it down. And for the upper bolts, we use a 9/16 socket and wrench. For our end links, we'll use a 24mm socket and wrench. We can now put our shocks back into place. You'll need to collapse it first, and then rotate it into position and slide your bolt through. On the other side, you can place your washer and nut. And then we can tighten those back down. We can then go back and torque all of our hardware to the specifications found in your instructions. The Allen head bolts can be difficult to torque down if you've installed your shock, so it might be better if you tighten those down before putting the shock on. Our end links we don't want to torque down, you just want to run them tight, just so that the ends touch the bushings here. With everything tightened and torqued, you're ready to hit the road. And that completes our look and installation of Roadmaster's rear anti-sway bar on your 2015 motorhome with the Ford F53 chassis.